Hi, and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician, aside from actually playing your instrument. My name is Emily Dolan Davies. I've been a drummer since 1999. I've been professional since 2008 and helping other people on their journey in the professional realm since 2018, and that is why we are here today. So just to start in the manner of which we are becoming accustomed, I just want to do a shout out to a Patreon member. So this Patreon member is Ian Dearden. I'm going to say Dearden, who signed up on my birthday in 2023. So a special shout out to you. To be fair, Ian, I feel like this has been a bit of a one-way conversation with you. Maybe we have spoken, but maybe a long time ago. But please do reach out to say hi in the flesh. It would be lovely to sort of say hello. I was saying this to a student literally last night. Oh, which reminds me, I need to email them. I apologise, Louis. I apologise. So yeah, I was saying to the student yesterday that podcasting is such an interesting thing because you really do feel like you're shouting into the void sometimes, and it's like I'm very acutely aware often that I am literally a person just sitting in a room essentially talking to myself, and then it's only when I get sort of like bits of feedback about an episode or whatever else that I realise that I'm kind of like, I don't know, connecting with people, I suppose, which is my favourite thing to do. In saying that, also, I must apologise that I did not manage to get an episode done last week. I managed to catch this, there's some coughs and flus and all sorts of stuff going around at the moment, and I managed to catch a coughing thing that essentially just, it didn't allow me to speak more than 2 sentences without packing my guts up, and I thought, nobody needs to be hearing that right now. I don't think that's fun for anyone, including me. It was just too much. So I thought, let me just leave it. Let's not torture anyone in the scenario, me or you. And I thought I'd just leave it till this week. So here we are. That is that. But anyway, thank you again to Ian for your support on Patreon. If you yourself listening right now would also like to become a Patreon member, I feel like there should be a name for the people on Patreon, like a collective name for people that support this podcast. I don't know what that is yet, but I'll think. If you have any ideas, let me know. But yeah, if you'd like to join that cohort, then if you go to patreon.com/EmilyDrums, then you can also support this podcast. Anyway, right. So today's episode was based off of a conversation that I had ages ago with someone called Greg. We love Greg. Greg he was so open and honest about an experience that he had, and I just thought it'd be really useful to kind of like, he was asking some advice about, you know, how should I have handled this situation, like, did I do the right thing, like, how can I do this better? So I thought it'd be really beneficial to kind of share it with everyone, and he said, yeah, absolutely, please do. So it's Greg Rosie Eisen. Hey Greg, how you doing? And basically, he had an experience. I've literally got the message in front of me, so I'm going to read the message and then I'll go through my thoughts. I've jotted down some thoughts, as always, but yes, right, so I'm going to start off just by reading this. So Greg said, I had an experience last year with a few dates in a row in Scotland. Although I had worked with the band once before, there was a singer I knew really well that time. Okay. So we did the first set, and the bass player was giving me notes on stage after a couple of the songs, pointing out one of the songs was too slow and another one too fast. So at halftime, I went to go see the front man to ask his thoughts. I was panicking and filled with anxiety. Of course you were. That is a logical, of course, I would be the same. He seemed fine with all the tempos, but suggested a couple of different notes, playing a cross stick in a verse and hats instead of a ride on another song, which I felt better about. After we finished the gig, a backing vocalist came up and said how well I'd played, and went on to say that the last time we played together, she didn't rate me. So my head took that as a negative. Bless you, Greg, honestly. Gig day 2 and 3 felt like I was an anxious mess. Again, of course you did. I would be exactly the same all day. So I was an anxious mess all day, and the gig was a blur, to be honest, but no notes. I felt like I couldn't discuss it with the band because they'd think I wasn't confident and they'd be on edge in the gigs. Can I just say, can I just say that is a really, I love how self-aware you are of your position in the band and your role as a drummer. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we are there to make people feel confident, and safe. So you didn't want them to think that you were unconfident or on edge. I called a couple of people to talk it through with them, but my mind wouldn't undo the good that they were saying. Because they weren't there. They didn't hear I was playing or know the material, etc., etc. Our brains are good at that. I found that there's a fine line with how many things you can ask or how open you can be when you are, but only there is a depth, as the band can be more concerned about you as you come across as uncomfortable. If you had any thoughts on this, I'd be grateful. Could I handle the situation better in Scotland to put myself at ease? Did I overreact to the few notes and ignore the fact that the rest of the band was doing... ignore the fact that the rest of the band... What? Okay, basically that you were doing okay. Sorry, I think I must have copied that in a strange way that it doesn't make sense. But, right, I have thoughts. I don't know about people that are listening right now. I have thoughts. So, first of all, I'm really sorry that this scenario happened to you, Greg. In the same breath, I will also say that, without exception, as far as I'm aware, this has happened to us all in one way or another. It's happened to us all. And it's horrible and it's uncomfortable. But the fact that, A, you're reflecting on it is a really great sign, because it happened, and some people would just be like, oh, this is just how it is, and this is the status quo, and this is normal, and I should expect this. You've gone, I wasn't happy with how that went down. I want to change something. And I love that. Can I just say so? First off, kudos to you. Also, thank you for sharing this. Again, you're being so honest and open and vulnerable with us, and it just makes... It's a compliment to me, and also, like, I just find so much strength in people that are able to be that open and honest about things like this, which are difficult. They are a difficult subject. So I will tell you about the first time that I actively remember experiencing exactly what you're talking about. Like, not one for one, but it was same sort of vibes. I was probably, I want to say 13. I was at a jam night in North London, in Tottenham, and there was a guitarist there. So I'd gotten up to play, to jam, this blues jam, and there was a guitarist there, and as I was playing, I'll never forget, his name was Chris. He had it was a Strat that was like a really gross, what I would deem to be gross, greeny, bluey colour. I'm sure guitarists will know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's quite a striking guitar, but not in a good way. And I don't know whether it's him that made it not very appealing to my eye. But anyway, we were playing. I was a 13-year-old girl, so fair play. Like, I'm a kid, right? In some dingy pub in Tottenham, which I love. That's kind of where my heart lies, is places like that. And this dude must have been, I don't even know, in his 40s, 30s, I don't know. He's a grown man, very grown man, like at least double my age, probably more, maybe triple my age. But anyway, so we start playing, and bear in mind, I've only been playing for 2 years at this point, but I remember so well him trying to tell me how to play the drums, like, go to the right here, or speed up, or slow down. And I remember being like, really angry that he felt the need to tell me what to do, right? And luckily, I will say luckily, my dad is a guitarist. So when it comes to guitarists, when they try and tell me to do things, there is something in me that is like, no! I get really weird with, I don't know what it is, guitarists in particular. So anyway, I was a bit like, no! I know what I'm doing. I mean, dude, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm 2 years into playing. I knew to a degree. But anyway, the point is, I will never forget that feeling of trying to be told by someone what to do in the blooming moment during the song. And I just thought, right, nah, I don't like that, not at all. I'm a stubborn person, I really am, and I'm not a fan of it's weird. It's so weird because in a way it was that I was not willing for my worth to be determined by this random dude at a blues jam. I didn't know this man. I knew him to say hello. That's it. Apart from that, we're not friends. I didn't ask you. I didn't ask for your feedback, especially not during the song. And for some reason, I always had this thing from then, like, right, I need to know that I know what I'm doing in my heart and in my soul. I need there to not be a question about that. And I'm certainly not saying that I never question what I do, how I do it, how well I've done it. Absolutely not. So anyway, that kind of was my very first experience of that, and it's awful. It's a horrible experience. It really, really is. But anyway, let's talk about your situation, Greg. Let's bring it back down to you. We're not here to talk about me necessarily. So first of all, this bass player. I've got issues. I've got issues with how they approached you and did this, because I don't think, unless it's like, look, it's never going to be life and death, and unless you are making it impossible to play, which it didn't sound like you were, I don't know why they felt the need to say these things during the first set, especially when, of course, you didn't ask. You're in the middle of a set. Like, there is nothing good to be gained from that. So I will say that I do think that bass player was acting a little bit out of turn there in doing that. Also, you're a dep. They should just be happy that you're there, saving the day for whatever reason that their drummer is not there. Like, it's not good. It's definitely not good. And the thing is, I think that this bass player set you off on a bit of a trajectory in terms of, like, and I've had this as well, where one thing can be said and it will make you question and feel on eggshells or feel anxiety throughout the whole of the gig. And bless you for then going to the other band members to be like, are you happy with what I'm doing? And blah, 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 blah. It just ends up being a bit of a spiral, which is an absolute nightmare. And the problem is, as well, all those people in that band, you don't know what they're going through right now. You don't know if they themselves are feeling insecure about something. You don't know whether the bass player and the backing singer had a bust up and they're feeling a bit weird and whatever. Like, everyone's got their stuff going on. And unfortunately, when you open yourself up like that, sometimes, not always, not at all, but sometimes you can get the brunt of whatever they're feeling insecure about, and they can channel it onto you, which is a nightmare. And I feel like maybe this is what this bass player was doing, because unless you ask, nobody asked you. Like, what? I honestly, I don't get this bass player's angle. Nothing productive can come from someone in the moment, like, offering criticisms or critiques, let's say that. No, unless it's pivotal to the situation, which is not. I'm telling you now, it's not. In my books, that's not okay. And if I were in your position, what would I do? What would I do if I was sat there and a bass player was like, oh, go to the right there? I'd probably, well, I've had it happen. It continues to happen. It continued to happen for me. I get stubborn. I get stubborn. I don't move. If you tell me to go the right when I'm on the hats, I'm staying in the hats. If only, like, it's awful. For spite. It is. It's for spite. But, you know, my whole thing is, right, if I'm playing next to a bass player, Mr. Bass Player or Mrs. Bass Player or them bass player, look, I have studied my instrument. I'm not saying that there's not more to learn. There's always something new to learn. Always. But you have been studying your instrument. Let's stay in our lanes and let's connect. But don't be coming here talking to me about what I should be playing. Absolutely. Unless you're an artist and I'm playing for you and it's because your preference is something else. Fine. I'm all for it. But I find it very strange that they felt the need to tell you what part of the kit to play on, about tempos, all this sort of stuff. And the only conclusion that I can come to personally, and it's weird because I feel like I want to have a conversation with you, Greg. I want to ask you questions. I want to clarify. The only thing that I can think of is that this bass player is incredibly insecure. Incredibly, that they feel that they need to voice opinions that weren't asked for and that they put that onto you. Like I say, especially as a deck player, you are not the regular drummer. If anything, they should be making you feel comfortable, feel welcomed, and all of that. Now, what I will also say is that I admire that singer for being like, no, I'm happy. And I get that the weight of someone saying, sounds good to me, it's so much like the criticism is always more heavily weighted. It can be one bit of criticism and you can get 10 compliments. You're going to remember that bit of criticism. And just remember that criticism was opinion, for sure. Music is always subjective. Yes, all right, you might be playing songs that are covers. In fact, this was a covers gig. So yes, you're playing other people's parts. But let's say you playing a part of the song that originally was on the ride, but you played on the hat, is not going to change anything. It's not going to change a thing. So I have real issue with this, and I feel that I think we all have had experiences of that where someone feels like they know better. And honestly, I swear to you, my theory is that it is purely insecurity, and that it's often people that, yeah, they don't feel like they're as good as the people around them. They have their own internal struggles going on, and I think it's very easy to assume that everyone around you is feeling very confident in what they're doing. They feel they know what they're doing. They feel worthy of being there. They feel good enough to be there, because you don't know what they were thinking about you. You might have come in and they might be thinking, oh my God, Greg's here. He's like a really professional musician and he's come and he's learned all these songs. Like, he's absolutely nailed it. Like, oh my God, we're just some band. We're just some rubbish covers band. You don't know that. They could be thinking that, and that's putting them on the back foot. And again, that's nothing to do with you. You just rocked up and did the work, and kudos to you. But unfortunately, those things then manifest in sort of like strange behaviours, should we say. So the way that like I say, this is how I tackled it from the very first time that this happened to me that I remember. And I just remember thinking, right, I need to be so sure of myself as a player in certain aspects, because trust me, I have so many insecurities in my playing. It will never end, and that's okay. I think that's what makes us interesting as players. We're human, we're not meant to be perfect. But there are certain things that I thought, right, I need to know that I can execute these things. But more than that, because obviously these things are all subjective, I need to know myself that I'm happy with them. Or if not happy with them, I find them acceptable and I'm always working on them, which, again, endless thing. So for me, if I were in your position, you were saying about there were, this bass player said something about timing, tempo things. Here's what I would do, because I'm extreme, and you know this enough about me by now if you've been listening for any amount of time. And I'm almost certain that I actually did this at one stage. It would have been a long time ago. I would record myself playing a song but without the song at the tempo that I thought it was, the tempo I thought it was. I would record myself playing, even if it was only like 8 bars, 16 bars, maybe a bit longer actually, and then I would compare it to the original speed and the original song and see how close I was. Now look, we're never going to get it perfect. I mean, maybe we can get it perfect, but if that's how you want to spend your time, that's fine. I don't think the return on investment of time to get it BPM perfect is worth it, to be honest. If you can get within a few, fine, great. As long as you get the vibe right, great. Also practicing with like metronomes where they drop out for a few bars and then you come back in, and then you would hope that you're back in on the one. That would really help me. That's what I have done. That's what this was my thing actually. This was my thing. My dad used to do that for me when I was a kid, when I was sort of like first starting out. I would play along to records and he would turn down the volume and then bring it back up, and we'd see how in time I was. And for some reason, my timing naturally is very good. I'm convinced it's because my mum used to do workout classes with me in her stomach when I was in her belly. In her stomach, yeah, she ate me. When I was in her belly, she was doing workout classes and her timing is very good. So I'm convinced that that's part of the reason I'm naturally quite good timing. Because let me tell you, my dad, guitarist, absolutely not. It's kind of a running joke in our family how bad my dad's timing is. It's quite hilarious considering he is the one, all the time I've been learning drums, he would drill into me about how important timing was. But again, this is why when this Chris thing happened for me, that guitarist, I was like, no, you don't tell me to speed up or slow down. That's not what I do. I know my job. My job is to keep time, and I'm doing that. So anyway, personal things. Personal vendettas, poor Chris. So yeah, that's what I would do. The second thing I would do if I were in your position, so that's the timing thing. Now the parts thing, personal pride for me, I really enjoy trying to replicate parts as they are. That's just my personal preference. If it's not your bag, that's fine, but you have to be okay with that and sort of reaping the consequence of that. Now, the number one thing that I would do if I were in your position, and that I have done, and that really helped me understand what was actually happening on a gig in the moment, because it's very hard to be like objective in the moment of a gig. Like, you know, there's emotions flying around, there's things happening all the time. If people are saying stuff to you as well, and then you get in your own head and it's like, oh my god, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just trying to hold it together, you're not going to be able to say that was a good gig, that was a bad gig, I don't know how I played. Like, it's impossible. However, through the power of technology, I would excuse me, I would record every gig. In fact, I did. I recorded every gig that I did. I recorded every rehearsal session I did with bands. I recorded every practice session I did by myself, and I would listen back to every one of those things. Let me tell you, it takes time. But what I found was, when I initially started recording gigs specifically, I realized that it wasn't that my timing wasn't good, but my BPMs were not where I thought they were. I thought that they were on it. They were. It was hard to face, because I was like, oh my god, I've kind of been priding myself on the fact that I play songs at the right speed, and I'm not doing it. It was horrible. I can literally picture the first moment that I realized this, when I was listening about, I was like, oh no. And it wasn't all of them, but it was some of the songs were just not at the right tempo, and I was like, this needs to be addressed. And it wasn't about someone else saying it to me. No one had said anything to me. It was me. My standard that I hold myself to, admittedly, is probably has been too high in the past. I've been very cruel to myself. I would not suggest it. But at the end of the day, if you want to be great at something, you've got to have that internal bar. Because you shouldn't have to, like, it's no one's job, unless you're paying them to lead you. You know, I wouldn't trust a random bass player that I've met that day. I would not trust their judgment. Who are you? What's your experience? Like, no, we're allowed to have our own opinions, and I would like me to like my own playing. Does that make sense? I don't know. Anyway, I should be the only person that can truly critique my own playing. Like, yeah, of course I'm open to discussions about it, input, all of that by people that I admire. You know, there are so many musicians that I adore. Their playing is fantastic. There are aspects of their playing that I just think are absolutely fantastic. And I will ask them in that specific, you know, realm. I will be like, I don't know, it'll be more of a conversation actually, just to understand their understanding of that realm. And then I will bring it to my playing, whether I feel that I'm where I want to be. Because who cares about where your playing is in relation to someone else's opinion? That's not going to fulfill you. That's not going to, you know, you can play for someone else, as in you can get better for someone else's, what's the word? Not benefit, but what's the word? You can get better as a player judging by what they feel a great player is. But if it doesn't fulfill you, you will end up feeling empty. And I've been there. I've been there too. It's awful. It's an awful feeling to do all of that work and then finish and go, well, not finish. It's never finished. But get to a point and then go, why do I feel miserable? I don't feel anything when I play. Technically, yeah, I can play. Oh, that's a cool thing I can play. Look at this thing I can do. But on the inside, you're like, empty. Absolutely empty. Doesn't make me feel a thing. And I don't want that for you, Greg. I want you to have the confidence to rock up on a gig where you know in yourself, I know what I'm bringing to this gig. I know where my strengths lie. I know where my weaknesses lie. And I know that because I have chosen to know that. I have done the work in exploring that from my point of view. And if a bass player, for instance, if this same bass player, or a different one, or a guitarist, or a keys player, or a singer, or whatever, in the middle of a gig goes speed up or slow down, which also I've had way after the fact of that first thing, I remember my response, not being one of spite, not being one of like, nah, don't tell me what to do. It was just like, I hear you, but no. And I choose to say no, because this is my domain. This is my job. The specific other person I'm thinking of, he is a guitar singer. And he's trying to get me to speed up. And I know, because I know him well enough, it was a depth situation. I just depped a lot for this band. And I knew that the reason that he was saying that to me was nothing to do with me. It was his insecurity. And he felt that by playing a song faster, gave it more energy, gave it more, like he felt more comfortable by things being played faster. But I chose to say no. And I stuck to my guns. And we had a conversation about it afterwards, because he sort of said, I don't know if he probably wouldn't have said to me, like, oh, when I said speed up, or something like that. I don't think he would have said it to me like that. Like, we don't have that kind of relationship. We're very friendly with each other. I explained to him, I said, look, I need you to know my ethos, which is that, this was a covers gig, by the way, it's worth mentioning that. I said, I understand you want to speed things up for energy or whatever, but from my perspective, the people in this audience, they want to hear these songs. They are covers. They want to hear songs that they know. They want it to be at the speed that they're at, and because they want to move in the way that they've always moved whenever they hear this song, and it reminds them of this time in their life when they're there with their friends and they want to just bask in that moment. If you're speeding it up, you're creating a friction of like, what is this? I don't understand. And look, it's fine if it's a covers band that does things in a different style, totally. But this was a band that was traditionally just playing the songs as they were. And I was like, I have pride in that. I have pride in I know that that's the right tempo that this song is played at. Like, I know it is. And yeah, so we sort of had a conversation on that front. But just knowing that in myself. And if he'd have then said, you know, okay, yeah, but as a band, we want to play this song faster. I'm like, fair enough. Okay, that's fine. But don't tell me in the moment. It's not conducive, because again, you become a victim to people's emotions in the moment, which there's so much that is involved. It just makes it so complicated, with insecurities, emotions flying around. Again, you don't know what's going on in their lives right now. They might be feeling really angry or really upset or really vulnerable or very, any number of things. And it affects musicianship. And depending on, like I said, the situation makes it very dependent on whether you follow those things. But I think it needs to be more of a choice rather than defaulting to someone else's opinion, especially if you don't know that person. Like, if I don't know you, like literally coming in cold, it's unlikely that I am going to take on your opinions as fact. And I say that as if you offer me a negative opinion. I say that if you offer me a positive opinion, exactly the same reaction. I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. They will forever be worked on, and that's that. But there is a comfort in knowing that in myself. And, in terms of poor Greg, and again, I know this feeling where you kind of tie yourself up in knots and you're feeling so, like, anxiety starts setting in, and you're going, oh my god, like, am I even doing this well? Or like, do they hate me? Am I doing a bad job? Blah, 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 blah. And you're kind of spiraling. I've had that. Most noticeably was on The Voice Kids. 100%. That was my worst spiraling moments, plural moments. I found that so difficult, and it was so enlightening in how to deal with that. And that was nothing to do with anyone else on stage. Nobody even knew that this was happening to me whilst I was sat there. But I was so caught up in feeling like I didn't belong there, like I wasn't good enough to be there, that all these musicians on this stage are so much better than me. They're so much more experienced. Like, how the hell did I rock up here? How did I slip through the cracks or whatever? Like, I felt like the biggest imposter ever going. Plus, the guitarist in the band happens to be a fantastic drummer. And there's a second band, which is exactly the same band, apart from the drummer is different, who is also a fantastic drummer. And their style is so opposite to mine. But of course, I'm like, well, obviously theirs is better because it's different. And, all these things. This is how I was spiraling. So I ended up, the first 2 years of The Voice Kids, it really affected me. It ended up, I could barely play sometimes because I was so caught up in this cycle of feeling inferior to everyone involved on that stage. And I think I just got to a point where I was like, right, I just need to know what I bring to the table. And yeah, in all honesty, I don't really remember if there was a specific thing that I did. I think I just ended up normalizing it. Like, it just became about, all right, by the third year, I was like, I've been here 3 years now. They must think I can do the job. Otherwise, they would have got rid of me by now. And it made me be able to relax a little bit with them, which in turn made me play better anyway. It made me connect with the guys better. And yeah, it just became about leaning into my strengths and weaknesses, because what I realised after time was that everyone on that stage has strengths and weaknesses too. There were moments where songs would come up where the bass player would freak and just be like, oh my god, I hate this, this is so hard, this is, but he would then defer to someone else. Let's say it was in a style that he wasn't comfortable in. He would defer to someone who had a lot of experience in that style and just be like, dude, is this legit what I'm doing? Like, does this sound okay? Because I have lost all objectivity. And they'd be like, yeah, that's really, like, banging, really good. And I got into that kind of rock, like, mode as well, where I was like, right, I know if you're giving me a rock song I know how to do that. Let me do my thing. This is fine. And I would enjoy it because it was like, it's in my bones. But give me a gospel song or like a modern R&B song or whatever, I flail a bit. I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't know whether it's legit. So I would defer to someone else and be like, dude, is this acceptable? I think is the right word. And often it would be like, yeah, sounds good. Or it would be like, it sounds great. If you just added this, that would just tip it over the edge. And it would. And it became this trust between people, but only if you ask, like, well, yeah, pretty much if you ask, because the baseline level of what we were working at, it was always good enough, but it was just about, yeah, but I really, and again, it becomes about personal pride. Like, I really want this to sound legit. Like, in your experience, what could I be doing just to tip it, and it made it really fun because you know that you're always growing as well. And again, it's this trust between that group of people, which initially I didn't have, and it was just because we didn't know each other. Like, it was these relationships they developed over the 4 years that I worked there with these guys. And by the end of it, honestly, I felt like in such a great place with them that they knew my strengths and weaknesses, I knew theirs, and we all just came together. And even if it was just as simple as someone clocking that another person was feeling insecure about what they're playing, so that you could go, dude, you're killing it. Like, you're killing it, right? And just having that cohesion. So I don't know why I went down this rabbit hole, but you know me, I love a rabbit hole. And I think, yeah, I think the main thing that I'd say to you, Greg, coming back to you, because yeah, that's what we're here for. I'd say if you can find a way to just really rely on your own assessment of the situation, and that can be after the fact, absolutely. And if it were me, I know that if you're coming in to do a debt gig, obviously there are a lot of unknowns, so you would have been nervous, like that alone. But if you can get to a point where, even in spite of feeling nervous, feeling anxious, this being a new bunch of people, this being a new set of songs that you don't know as well as you'd like, but blah, 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 blah. All the factors that come into something that will make you feel a bit shaky and make it not as perfect as you like when you come into a gig. If you can come into that, and let's say you record it and listen back, and even with all those factors coming into it, you still listen back and go, yeah, I think that's acceptable, or I don't hate it, which is often my thing. I don't hate it. It's okay. It's actually okay. That's like the highest form of compliment. You're going to be flying, because when those elements aren't there, you will really, yeah, you'll soar. You'll absolutely soar. And the other thing is, if you can sort of like come in and do that job in that way, with that confidence, where if someone is saying something to you like, oh, do this, and you're like, no, you feel safe in yourself, you emanate that confidence to the rest of the band. And as you said, like, I can't remember specifically what you said, hold on. Oh, bless. What was it? Anyway, yeah, like, sorry, the bit that just caught my eye again was this backing singer that said that they didn't rate you the last time, but they did this time. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that to that person, that might have been a compliment. They might have meant that as a compliment. I know, people are weird. People are weird. Backhanded compliments. I have had many. I got told that, sorry, someone said to me once on a gig, this was Howard Jones' gig, I was playing on a stand-up electronic sort of hybrid kit of many things. I mean, it was a mad looking thing. And someone said to me, oh, I really love your toy drum kit. And they meant that as a compliment. They really genuinely did. They meant it as such a nice thing. And I was like, thank you. But believe me, I walked away and went, oh my God, I look like I'm playing on a toy drum kit. Do they think that I'm a child? Like, instantly, I was just like, blah, 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 like all my internal dialogue of feeling inferior, blah, blah, blah. It all came out in that moment, but they genuinely meant it as a compliment. And So these things are always going to happen. They're always going to happen. They will catch you off guard. But, you know, often people don't mean it in a mean way. They think they're being helpful. And I think that also, like, maybe, and again, I'm saying this in theory because I'm no good at this, sort of exercising some sort of boundaries in terms of critiques, should we say? Like, so if that bass player, if you're on a gig again with them and they start piping up in the middle of a set, just say, I appreciate what you're saying. Can we talk about this, like, at the interval or after the gig or whatever? Because now is not the time. You know, I think that that brings an element of professionalism to the thing, to the situation, and like you say, like, you need to protect your position and your creativity. It's very hard to be creative if you're feeling insecure, for sure. And like I said, I think the baseline is, for me, find a way to, like I said, I would just record all of your gigs and listen back, and you decide what needs to be improved upon, and then improve upon it so that you know where you're at definitively, in your own mind, in your own brain, in your own heart, because that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Like, if people like it or they don't like it, that's up to them. Because again, a lot of this, I would hazard a guess and say, was actually nothing to do with you. I think that there were a lot of other factors at play, and unfortunately, people felt that they could exert their anxieties, their worries. You know, let's go back to this bass player. Maybe they feel like they're the worst in the band, like musically or something, and maybe this was their way of exerting some sort of status over you. And again, not intentionally, maybe not. Probably not, to be honest. But you know, these things happen. Like, you were the new kid, so all eyes are on you, and sometimes people just do things to make themselves feel better because they feel so rubbish. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it easier to understand sometimes. And if you can kind of just try and say to yourself, this is actually nothing to do with me. I know where I'm at. I know that I can do the job. I know I'm happy with XYZ in my playing. I know that I'm not happy with ABC, but I'm working on APC, and therefore I'm happy with that as an entity, if that makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to go now because that is enough. But I hope that this has helped you in some way, Greg, and anyone else that's listening that has also had some sort of negative gig experience like this. I guarantee you that all of us have in some respect, and if you haven't, you will. 100%. It's just one of them things. It is just one of them things. Anyway, I shall love you and leave you. If you have enjoyed this episode, you know the drill. Like, share and subscribe. If you would like to support this podcast, you now can over on patreon.com/Emily Drums. You can support it just like lovely Ian Dearden, yes, has for the last 2.5 years. Again, I will be reading out Patreon subscribers as we go. And what else do I have to say? If you'd like to come follow me on Instagram, you can. My handle is at @HeyEmilyDrums. That's at @HeyEmilyDrums. And if you would like some one-on-one coaching with me, so if you'd like me to help you with your career specifically, anything that you're struggling with, aside from your playing, well, you know what I mean, in a global sense, not in a global sense, in a local sense. But yeah, if you'd like any help with sort of like forwarding your career in music, then you can hit me up about some one-on-one coaching. If you go to emilydrums.com, yeah, that's it, emilydrums.com. Anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, whatever you're up to. I will be back next week with another subject. Sending you lots of love, and I will speak to you soon. All right, bye.